And there I was, in the small town theater in Belmont, Massachusetts, tearing up as the credits rolled. The Last Jedi is a special movie to me. It's my favorite of the Star Wars sequel trilogy, and in my top 3 favorite Star Wars movies, with the other 2 being Empire Strikes Back and Star Wars, the original. There were things in this movie that I did not know I wanted until after I saw it. Like many, I went with many expectations and fan theories, but instead of any of them coming true, this was a new movie with a different story, with very little obnoxious fan service. I understand it's hyperbole when I say I like absolutely everything in this movie, but I mean it. First, Luke gets a fantastically crafted arc in this movie. He's not level 18 Jedi God like he is in Legends. They knock him down a peg and say, yeah, Luke is human, and he made mistakes. This is important because for your main character, you can't put him on such a high pedestal like Jesus or Mohammed, or Buddha. Luke says that the Jedi's strict and arrogant ways is what allowed Darth Sidious to take over, and it's also what caused him to lose Ben. I like this because Rian Johnson took into account the fact that the Jedi were not really written well by George Lucas in the prequels, and just made it part of the story. When Luke held the saber over Ben, he was foregoing all attachments as part of the Jedi Code, following his training. Because of a split second, he thought he could stop the horrible future Ben would create. But when Luke stares at his cybernetic hand holding the laser sword, he realizes he's becoming Vader again, like on the Death Star so many years ago. And he was filled with regret, sorrow, and the eyes of a frightened boy whose master failed him. He was already too late. He is what turned him. But like Cal Kestis in Jedi Fallen Order, he learns from his mistakes and by the end, confronts his mistakes head on, planting a seed in Ben that might turn him back to the light. After all,
the greatest teacher, failure is.
A directing technique that Johnson uses that I really like is the multiple flashbacks technique. We see multiple misled or false flashbacks, and then by the end, we see the true flashback of what actually happened, with hints in those false flashbacks as to what was going on, like things you missed. Rian Johnson also uses this technique in his 2 Knives Out movies to really good effect. The Rey and Kylo Ren story is also genius in this movie. Like I said earlier, I went into the theater with so many fan theories as to what would happen and who Rey's parents were, and boy was I a fool. I'd assumed she'd be Leia and Han's kid, because that was like the most popular theory at the time. But when I saw the movie, I realized she didn't really have to be. It really makes the entire Star Wars galaxy smaller if everyone's just each other's kid. The theme of this trilogy has kind of become that good can come from anywhere. Finn, Rey, and Poe all come from shady backgrounds, yet became leaders of the Resistance and saved the galaxy. This theme also works with that shitty Palpatine twist in Rise of Skywalker, saying that you're not defined by your lineage, and you make your own destiny. That's some of the only credit I'm gonna give Rise of Skywalker, because I do not like it. But people really wanted her to be related to someone because they all claim that she's a Mary Sue, which is a shitty argument, so I'm gonna break down why Rey is not a Mary Sue, or at least why it's not a problem, because everyone in Star Wars is already a Mary Sue to begin with. So people say that it makes no sense for her to fly ships, because she lived on a junkyard her entire time. But I ask you this, how was Luke able to destroy the Death Star when he's never even flown a ship before? For Rey, on the other hand, it's been established that she had flown.
Why?
Thanks.
How did you do that?
I don't know.
No
I've
one
learned some
trained-
ships, but I've never left the planet. Your last
That was.
She even works with ships, old ships, from the same era as the Millennium Falcon. He also knew where the gunner's seat is in the Millennium Falcon, which indicates that Unkar Plutt taught Rey about the Millennium Falcon as she worked for him. And also, how was Anakin able to destroy the entire Trade Federation ship when he was 9 years old? I doubt pod racing is actually related to flying ships. It's like riding an electric bike your entire life, and then all of a sudden piloting Air Force One. In terms of lightsaber combat, let's not forget that Luke held his own against Darth Vader in Empire Strikes Back, without any formal lightsaber training. He had to mirror Darth Vader, who was using Form 5. And how come Obi-Wan was able to beat Darth Maul when it's the first Sith to appear in the millennia, and Qui-Gon couldn't even do it? Star Wars characters are just really good at things, and it just makes me mad that people call out Rey for being a Mary Sue. Everyone in Star Wars is a Mary Sue. But anyways, back to lightsaber combat. We see Rey use and train with a staff. On Jakku, she probably had to fight for her life on a daily basis using a staff. And if you ask any martial artist, they would probably tell you that using a sword and a staff are not really that different, as they both require similar movements. And it makes sense that she's able to beat Kylo Ren in The Force Awakens. Kylo Ren had just killed his own father, so he might not be at 100% of his game right now. And also he got shot with a Wookiee bowcaster. We're shown multiple times how powerful a Wookiee bowcaster is in this movie. I'm more mad that Kylo Ren didn't spontaneously combust after being shot immediately. But regardless, he's got a wound. He's limping the entire fight. And let's just throw in another lightsaber wound on top of that. Plus, Kylo Ren is not even trying to kill Rey or Finn. For Finn, he's just toying with his food and trying to humiliate him because he's a traitor. He doesn't really want to kill Finn, he just wants him out of the way. And for Rey, Snoke told Kylo Ren to bring her to him, so he's not trying to kill her. If anything, she's also trying to recruit her. That's when she channels the Force awakens within her. And in most fights in the sequel trilogy, she loses. She loses to Luke, and only gets the upper hand when she whips out the lightsaber. She's only able to fight off Snoke and the guards with Kylo Ren's help. And in Rise of Skywalker, she loses to Kylo Ren, and is only able to stab him because Leia distracted Kylo. I swear to God, I noticed these things on my first viewing. And finally, the Force. The movie is called The Force Awakens. It's about the Force awakening in someone special. Everyone's fine with the virgin birth Jesus prophecy, which is probably the stupidest thing in all of Star Wars for Anakin. But not for the chick who knows how to fight with a lightsaber. Yeah, okay. But on Jakku, she heard stories about the Jedi, as the Jedi were legendary. She didn't believe the stories were real though, until Han confirmed them. And that's when her worldview changes and she starts believing in the Force. And after all, the reason why she probably didn't believe the stories were true is that the First Order and the Empire said that Luke Skywalker was a myth and that he was resistance propaganda. Rey has strong character traits and weaknesses. She's patient and persistent. She's optimistic and hopeful. Though she's reluctant to accept the truth, she tries to find herself in others without becoming her own person. I like the story between Kylo Ren and Rey because it's a story of Rey trying to redeem Kylo. But by the end, Kylo Ren wants to tear down the whole world order and forge a new one. Because in Star Wars, things have been kind of shitty for the past few decades. With the galaxy in constant war, he wants to stop it altogether and just wipe the slate clean. I think this is really interesting.
No, you're still holding on! Let go!
Another underrated part of the movie is the Finn and Rose story on Cantabite. People say this is dumb because it teaches Finn that war is bad, but those people aren't looking hard enough into this. This section of the movie dissects the root cause of conflict, capitalism. Now, I'm a really left-leaning guy, and I was surprised that Disney would allow Rian Johnson to explore this. If this movie came out today during the whole Disney funding the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, this film would not even exist. And that says a lot about how we're living in a socialist society, but for the top 1%. We could be in a second Taiping War with Jeff Bezos or whoever will just be making money selling weapons and dodging the draft. It's really simple. In real life, people profit off war, and in Star Wars, we have aliens profiting off war, something new. That's really what Finn learned, why people benefit off war, and why it continues to happen. In conclusion, capitalism sucks. In relation to this part of the movie, people give too much hate to the character Rose. So many asshats bullied the actress off social media, and out of The Rise of Skywalker even. That's fucked up. I like Rose in this movie. She feels the most unique. There aren't many people like Rose in Star Wars, so she's a nice welcome addition. I like her story as someone who lost her sister in war and wants to stop everyone else she knows from dying. My favorite moment in this movie for her is when she saves Finn, as him kamikazing into the laser would not have worked at all, as he was disintegrating as he was flying into it. Another plotline in this movie that gets unnecessarily hated on is the Admiral Holdo plotline. Holdo teaches Poe how to be a good leader, to think as a leader, not in the now, in the short-term winning, but in the long term. It might be better to retreat and not get a victory than to sacrifice too many people. At the beginning of the movie, he loses half the fleet, and in return is demoted and put under suspicion. And this is exactly why so many people saying that Holdo should have taught Poe the plan is dumb. Because when he does find out the plan, he allows it to leak to DJ and get even more people killed. And Poe finally learns this at the end. Admiral Holdo Lastly, I like the comedy in the movie. The comedy isn't really that bad, as many people say. It plays into the theme of holding on to hope, and it's not even that frequent. It's not like Snoke is doing stand-up the entire time, cracking jokes like Bill Burr. And some comedic scenes aren't actually meant to be taken comedically. Like take Luke throwing the lightsaber over his shoulder, for example. People laugh at that, but if you look at it as a serious moment, it makes sense. He doesn't want the thing. Was he supposed to say, "Oh, thank you for returning the lightsaber that brings back all the memories that haunt me"? And the most famous Luke Skywalker moment is when he threw away the saber. And Leia saying, "I changed my hair." First of all, that's a callback to The Force Awakens that flew over everyone's head, no pun intended. She's also overwhelmed to see Luke, that she can't help about talking about her hair. All you have no heart. I love this movie because it's new and inventive. On the surface, it looks like an Empire Strikes Back rehash, but if you look deeper and actually pay attention, it's more than that. The backlash against this movie makes me worried for the future of Star Wars. After this movie, we've been receiving so much content that is just pure fan service, that don't try anything new. Rise of Skywalker, Book of Boba Fett, Bad Batch aren't new. They don't challenge us, ask us to think about it. I don't want Star Wars to devolve into Marvel, cheap movies and blind fan service with no substance and very little style. But I do have hope, because Andor is wholly original, and it's doing really good right now.
When people ask me, don't you think people are going to get sick of Star Wars movies? To me that question indicates that they're thinking of Star Wars movies as a museum exhibit that is wheeled out once a year so you can say, "Oh, I loved that thing. Oh, I remember that thing." And yes, if Star Wars is that, people are going to get sick of it really quickly. But if Star Wars are great new movies that are exciting and fresh, and that challenge you and surprise you and make you feel things and engage you the way that those original movies did, but always taking you to new places, both in the galaxy and emotionally, that's never going to get old. That's what it's all about.